Welcome to the Mama's Village podcast, where Fairfield County moms discover they're not alone in their struggles while uncovering the hidden gems, local treasures, and real solutions that make motherhood in Connecticut not just survivable, but extraordinary. I'm Abby. I'm not an expert, but I love to talk to them. And I wanted to take a second to actually acknowledge the things that I'm not talking about on this podcast. And I want to tell you why I've decided to do a podcast in such a heavily political time. I know that so much is going on right now, and I have my views, but I am not looking to be a divider. I am looking to be a supporter. And I happen to think that when we support mothers, we can actually do a lot of change. And when we help moms heal, we can actually help boys heal, and we can help our girls heal. And when we support moms in their ventures and their dreams and lift them up, we actually help society. And we show that moms and women can be leaders. So if you know someone that I should be interviewing or that I should talk to, then please DM me or message me and let me know. So with all of that being said, let's get into it. She is a licensed clinical social worker and the founder of a group therapy practice serving women, mothers, and couples across Connecticut and New York. Services include individual therapy, couples counseling, EMDR, and cognitive behavioral therapy. She has earned her master's from Columbia University and brings a warm integrative approach rooted in psychodynamic, somatic, and mindfulness-based modalities. Jennifer Mann, welcome to the Mama's Village podcast, CT. Thank you so much for being here. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here and be part of this process. My name is Jennifer, as you know, and I'm a local mom of two in the Connecticut area in Fairfield, and just really, really passionate. When you approached me, this totally resonated, and I'm just excited to be able to share my own experiences as well as some professional experiences as well, and hopefully reach your community that you're building. And I really love what you're representing here. So happy to be part of it.
Awesome. Where is your practice? Where are you practicing out of?
I serve Connecticut and New York. We're virtual with one office space too, actually in Fairfield. So we started in New York and then we moved to Connecticut.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about what you do outside. We're going to definitely dive into what you do inside your practice, but what do you do outside of your practice?
It's a good question. Well, I have two little ones, so my weekends are mostly full of just adventures with them. And I love being outside. I love spending time with other families and trying to, make some mom time happen alongside the kid time too. So I like doing, I find time during the week too to do Pilates and yoga. I grew up dancing. So that's I haven't really been able to find, my dance class quite yet, but I'm on my way there, and cooking lots of food and enjoying the beach. I'm a big beach girl.
So I love to share hidden gems in the Fairfield County area because I just feel like there's so many, and I love to just know what other people are doing. Can you tell us a little bit about some hidden gems that you're like, I have to share?
Totally. Well, for a mom's night out, I just went to this place that I have never been before, and it blew me away. Actually, we went for a friend's baby shower, but it's called Wine and Cheese Day Spa in Fairfield.
Oh.
They do charcuterie boards and they serve, mocktails, cocktails, wine, and we got pedicures. So that was awesome. And that was something very different than I've never done before. So that's kind of like a mom's gem. They've been open for like a year and a half now, something like that. And one of my favorite gems too, like the other day we went with my kids, was mini golf in Norwalk at the Cove. And then after we followed it up with some lobster rolls at Cops Oysters,
Oh,
the truck. And it's right on the water. It's beautiful. There's the galley is there. So there's a lot of different spots that you can actually sit and eat and just enjoy the water. And we love to golf. So it was a perfect mix of, lobster and golf. So those are kind of my go-tos right now.
that's great. I love it. I'm loving, well, my little trick that I do is I go down to Southport, Tasty Yoke. The Tasty Yoke is like a really awesome breakfast sandwich food truck, and they are in Southport on Pequot Avenue. They have a bunch of them all over in Stratford, I believe, too. And it is the perfect like mom getaway for 30 minutes. Like you drop your kids off and then you just go to the beach, have a little breakfast sandwich, and just like go on vacation for 30 minutes.
Love
And
that.
then you start
Yeah,
your day and you start your work day. I go home, I start my work day, and I just like had a vacation. It's pretty great.
I love that. I've actually been to the Tasty Oak, but the one that we went to was on the side of the road. So
In
that's
Fairfield, the one in Fairfield? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that one's good too. I mean, this one is yeah, it's right on that little I don't remember the name of the actual beach, but you can find it on their website. It's a great and it's really great breakfast sandwiches, delicious, like very juicy, meaty, big and fat.
Mhm. Exactly. Perfect way to start the day.
That's right. So, what are you listening to, watching, reading, anything? Can you share anything for moms?
Yeah, I actually started watching. I don't think it's that new, but there's this Secrets of the Blue Zones on Netflix. And it's, I love documentaries. So it's a documentary about the blue zones, which are zones where they are known to have like the longest living people, the people who it was kind of like secrets of why these places exist and why they're considered to be blue zones. So I thought that was such an amazing documentary, so interesting. It shows a little bit about like, how humanity is similar in certain ways, like cultures may vary, but there's a basic well-being aspect to longevity and joy. I mean, it if you haven't seen it, I definitely would check it out. There's like, women going to dance classes with one another at, various ages and learning about what foods naturally are occurring in these blue zones, like the purple yam, something like this, and why these places exist. But honestly, I think it's just more, it brought me a lot of joy to see that small little things like, gardening and walking and all of these things and just food are what contribute. It's not that complicated. It's not that, layered. It's just small little things that you can do to bring into your life joy and laughter and how we can integrate that into our well-being and like the things that we do to take care of ourselves. So I really liked that.
Yeah, I have seen that. It's been a minute. I feel like I should rewatch it. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Recently, I've watched the Billy Joel two-part series out on, I want to say HBO Max. It is very good. It is very
I
good.
love Billy Joel.
I know, and you don't realize like how much he went through in his life. And, I feel like, maybe we can segue into some of the deeper things that moms sort of go through, like anxiety and things like that, because it's a good reminder that, like, just because you're really successful and just because you have all these things going on and that you're really good at something doesn't mean that you don't have these things going on in the background and
Mhm.
doesn't mean you don't have, all of these worries and anxiety back there. So, maybe we could talk a little bit about your practice and some of the things that you're seeing. Like, what are you seeing right now with moms? What are they coming to you with? And how are you telling them to cope?
Yeah. Well, I think it's such an interesting time. Technology meets motherhood. A lot of the themes that have been coming up, at least this year, are there's so many options, there's so many voices out there, there's so many recommendations, and which is amazing and really, really helpful. Very different than, when my parents were raising me, but you can spend hours on Reddit trying to find the perfect stroller. You could spend hours trying to find the perfect cup. It gets really nitty gritty and it becomes extremely overwhelming. And with social media, also, there's a lot of chatter, there's a lot of comparison that goes on of what you're doing. Like everyone kind of stands for something. Like, for new moms, like, are you breastfeeding? That's the age old question, but now it's like baby led weaning. What kind of toys do you have in your playroom? Do you use like wooden toys? Do you use plastic toys? What's best? Do you use organic fruit? All of these things come into question. And I think for a lot of moms, that fear of, doing the best for their kid can drive us a bit in circles because there's so much information out there. It's really hard to decipher who do I listen to, what works for my family, and come back to a grounded place ultimately, and not make choices based on, Instagram all the time or someone else's recommendation. So I think that's kind of a huge theme that's coming up, is just like, who do I follow and where did my voice go in all of this? Or
Mhm.
how do I find my voice in all of this?
How do I make the right decisions? I know
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of what people feel like is helpful can often feel like criticism. Like if I'm not doing that, then I'm doing it wrong. And for
Yeah.
me, that, I internalize that without even knowing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for parenting, especially, then you try something different and you're like, that doesn't feel right to me. And now you're kind of like confused. It causes a little bit of anxiety. And it does make it so that when I'm like scrolling through, I do find like is just like this cacophony of like noise now where I'm like, well, I don't want to listen to any of you. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm only gonna
Yeah.
listen to what you're talking about.
Yeah. I think that's a really common experience. And ultimately, I think in some ways that brings us back to the starting place, which is something that I like to work a lot with patients on, which is how to identify your gut, how to understand that it's not all about this like external reassurance, and we can't generalize our kids. Step one, right? Like anyone who's out there telling you this is the way is not taking into consideration how different each kid is and their needs and the family structure and what you have capacity for
Right.
and what works for your family. So anyone who's out there that's able to kind of make that mark and kind of go from there, I have more of a willingness to engage with that content, and people who are able to say like, hey, I don't do this 100%, right? But I also think by getting overwhelmed with the noise, we often find ourselves okay in that curious place of like, now what? And that's a really great place for me to be able to work with a mom to come back to, okay, what's your gut? How do we know what our gut is saying? How do we know what we believe to be working, not working? Like, what are our value systems that we have in place? And then working from there to develop more confidence to be authentic to ourselves and show up. That's kind of the basis of a lot of the work that I do with moms, is just kind of trying to get back to a grounded place.
hmm I know that I have anxiety. It's been something I've had since I was very young.
Mhm.
And as a parent, it is, I think, one of the ways that I actually cope. Like I think anxiety is actually a way that it like kicks me into action because I
Mhm.
feel better when I take like action steps.
Mhm.
But what are some of the other consequences or coping mechanisms or ways in which people that you're seeing? Like, is it mostly anxiety? What are you
Mhm.
seeing?
So, well, first of all, I love that you recognize that about anxiety, because I think that is a strength and a lot of people identify with that. So I think that's really awesome to share. And I would say the coping tools around having anxiety as a parent, or the flip side of it, can often lead us to feel exhausted. It can lead to social anxiety too, which can lead to isolation for moms, which we know is really tough because it's isolating as it is. Judgment, it can lead to a lot of negative consequences to have unmanaged anxiety. And I would say that with moms, I often see anxiety, depression, OCD is a big one, especially with women, just generally. Like
Yeah.
people really carry a lot of these things and they don't realize that, oh, wow, that's OCD, because OCD gets this like really interesting, like rap of washing hands or checking the oven before they leave. But OCD can actually show up in many more subtle ways that we also use to be productive. And when it starts to show up in motherhood, I think a lot of people end up in therapy because life is so overwhelming and it's really just not working for them anymore. So these tactics that worked at work or getting through school, they don't apply when you have a kid. So then we start realizing, oh, wow, we really need to find new coping tools to be able to thrive and be the moms and the partners that we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I think a lot of people end up in therapy, not really understanding, like, I don't know what's going on, but once we start to dig deeper, those are kind of some of the bigger skills that we are able to focus in on.
Mm-hmm. And I read something I believe you wrote about worry time. Was a really great article. Can you talk a little bit about worry time?
Sure. So, worry time is a really great technique for anyone who's in therapy or out, because it's kind of a simple way to compartmentalize your day. So, it's good for the person who goes throughout their day and all of a sudden you are bombarded with worries. And that could be anything from, oh my God, I have to go, empty the dishwasher, to next year, what's that going to be like for my child who's entering seventh grade? And we're overwhelmed by worry, and yet you still have possibly you still need to be productive. You still need to do something at home. You still need to pick up your kids when you have to. You still need to have a call. Maybe you're a working professional. You have all these other responsibilities. So these worries kind of bog you down and they do make you less present in the moment, leading to possibly brain fog or the inability to stay present or feel joy throughout your day. So, what I love about worry time is we don't push it under the rug, which I think a lot of people do. They're like, let me just stop the thought, right? I can't worry about that now. Let me just stop thinking about that. Well, for people with anxiety, we know that that is not a thing. You can't just actually put something under the rug and have it stay there. Actually, it just grows, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what we want to do is acknowledge the anxiety. However, we also have lives to live and we have a lot to get done. So, what we do is create something called a worry time, which you can set up to be between like 5 and even 20 or more minutes that you set aside for your day. And worry time is a place where we get to go into all of those worries. So if they pop up in the morning and worry time is at noon, you can do a couple of things. You can say, note, hey, this is a worry for worry time. If part of you is like, I need to think this through right now, I don't want to forget about this worry, or you feel some sort of attachment to it, it's a good idea to maybe write it down. You could either write it physically in like a notebook, you could put it in your notes app, you could text it to yourself and voice record it, whatever. I've seen it all. It's all great. And what we want to do is gently, just as we do, if you're familiar with meditation, the phrasing is similar to that. So you kind of gently want to just notice that thought, store it for worry time, and gently come back to what you were doing. And that's really, really hard to do, especially when there's like a really sticky worry.
Mm-hmm.
The more we do it, the easier it gets. It's a lot of mental gymnastics, but I promise it works. And if it's very sticky, just keep trying to come back to the present, and doing some grounding techniques around that could be, looking around the room and naming 5 things, feeling your feet on the ground, doing some breathing. Those are all kind of grounding tools to help you move forward and keep doing what you're doing, essentially. Like, try and focus in on whatever you're up to.
Mm-hmm.
And then once worry time hits, we picked a place that we don't spend too much time in. You don't want to pick your bedroom. You don't want to pick a safe space, right? You want to pick something that you don't want to pick your office. You don't want to pick
Right.
your kid's bedroom. Like, you want to pick a place that like you have alone time, but it's not a place that you're going to damage with, associating it with worry.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you could like sit, I don't know, on your front porch or in the bathroom if you have limited space, wherever that looks like. But a time alone, set your timer up. And if you did make a list, you can look through your list and spend some time giving some space to those worries. What you're doing is letting it breathe. You're saying, this feeling is real. This feeling is valid. I am here with this. I'm giving myself the space to really go, if you need to, down that rabbit hole. And what's contained about this is that there's a timer. So you're not doing this all day. You're doing it for a specific amount of time. And then we gently come back to the present and move on with our day. And we know that we're going to have worry time tomorrow as well. So if we didn't finish worrying about it, or there's more emotion or more things to think through, great. It's on the calendar for tomorrow. And the idea here is that when you give your worries space and you validate them, that we can actually experience, even if they're not rational worries, we're giving them space to breathe. And we know that once we give space to breathe with containment, we're going to lessen our worry overall, and we're going to become more productive and more thoughtful about what's going on in considering the worry, as opposed to letting it kind of like eat away at us all day.
Mm.
So that's the technique.
I do love that. One thing that I definitely do is spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And so coming back out of that, I think will be a challenge for me when I try this. Like, I think it's so easy for me to allow myself. And, I'm one of those people that like, I really like to process a feeling
Mm-hmm.
but I will spiral. And I find that I used to think that that helped, but what actually is now starting to happen is I'm starting to physically feel like an anxiety. It's like starting to become more of like an anxiety that I can't necessarily get rid of. So is there anything you can think of like to tell yourself throughout to like stop the spiral? Do we let it spiral? Like what do you think?
Such a good question. And I think that's a really common experience when it becomes bodily panic, and you can really experience those anxieties physically. And a lot of people end up in therapy for that. They're like, I don't know, I feel heightened. My nervous system is all out of
Mhm.
whack. Or they don't say it that way, but it's like, okay, here we are. But I would say that it sounds like that particular one is something you've outgrown. It was working for you, and now you've outgrown it, and now it's actually not productive.
Mhm.
So the spiral in itself, if say we were in a session, I would actually use some CBT and some cognitive distortion work around how is our worry presenting itself. And I would actually give some skill building around, okay, we have this automatic thought that's coming up. It's going to worst case scenario. It's going to all the what ifs. Then we would work through an automatic thought record to actually come to a place where we can reframe the worry in a different way. And oftentimes we find ourselves having outgrown something that worked for us in the past. And it's very confusing. You're like, how do I just get back to that place?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we need to shift it a little bit. We're not probably going to get back to the place of like what worked for you 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
but we can still have the worry. We can still go down and give it breath, but we need to contain the actual worry in a different way as well. So
Mm.
that's like a layered approach to this. But if you are using this technique and you find that, hey, this is like too much, right? My body is too heightened. I can't come back from it. It makes it worse. That's kind of a red flag to us to be like, okay, I think we need to look at this worry. And I think we need to look at how we're approaching it and how we break it down. That's something that you can do in therapy.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So tell me about cognitive behavioral therapy. And then what was the other one? EMDR?
Yes,
Tell me
yes.
about the difference between those two. What are the approaches? I know you just explained cognitive behavioral therapy in that sort of layered approach, but like what is the overall approach of both of those, if you don't mind, just quickly?
Sure. Cognitive behavioral therapy, which is something that's integrated into work. So, at least in our practice, you can go to a therapist that's very like strict with it. We more so integrate it into our work when it applies to you and is a helpful tool.
Mhm.
So, for example, the idea is that your cognitive thoughts, your automatic thoughts are related to your emotions, they're related to your behaviors, and they're related to kind of how you live your life and these beliefs. And so, if we can kind of reframe certain things and identify what's coming up first, usually it's an automatic thought. Usually, we pick up on an emotion or we see a behavior and we don't even realize we've had this thought first.
Mm.
So we're kind of breaking that process down and we learn to create an alternative response, which is just stating facts. It's not the emotional aspects of the worry or the thought. It's really breaking it down to say, okay, what's reality here? And reality reflects like both sides. So it's not overly positive, like, oh, just get over it, it's no big deal. It's like, well, these are the reasons it's a big deal. And here are the reasons that it actually logically should feel different. And then we kind of use this tool to get you to a place that provides space between you and the automatic thought and see it more realistically, both sides being acknowledged. That's
Cool.
kind of a very brief little breakdown of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. That sounds cool. What's EMDR?
Yeah. So EMDR is something that Jacqueline at our practice is providing to patients. It is very different than having like your individual counseling session. And it is mostly for people who have experienced some type of trauma is that can be reprocessed. So the idea of it is that you go through a certain amount of sessions, you do resourcing in the beginning, you're kind of skill building. It's a very different kind of vibe than your traditional psychodynamic work. You're kind of focusing in on specific memories. And once you guys decide, it's a collaboration. You're really trying to figure out, okay, where is this stemming from? Sometimes it's really obvious. Sometimes it's really not what you think that you're going to go in there exactly focusing in on. And it is a way of reprocessing a traumatic incident or memory. And the goal is that you feel less heightened about this. So people, we actually have a beautiful situation going on in our practice where if I feel like one of my patients would really benefit from this, Jacqueline is able to see them doing EMDR for a period of time. So we can kind of come at things from multiple angles. And I think this is really important for people who for instance, have a traumatic event that's holding them back in some way, but also want to work on something else that's not necessarily exactly related. And it needs both talk therapy and EMDR. And when we couple that together, we've seen incredible things. So we're really excited about having this be part of our services and seeing where it goes.
What other services do you have? I know you have some supportive groups, some groups that you've got. Tell me a little bit about that.
So we're hosting a a mom's group actually this fall, which we're really excited about. We also have a new series called Balanced and In Between. This is kind of like a column for between sessions. You don't really have to be in therapy to participate. I actually am looking for community members and followers to ask me their questions, and you get a therapist's answer to your specific question. And the goal is just to kind of give a sense of connectedness between sessions. Like life happens outside of session, and that's kind of what we are looking to emphasize, that you don't necessarily need to be, your therapist is with you always.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're part of these communities, you can also gain a lot of access to areas that you're curious about or understand therapy and what we do from a different lens. And we're excited. I'm very excited about it. It's kind of my passion project that I'm getting to put in place. So if anyone has any questions or wants to check it out on our website or on Instagram, they can check that out and follow us and ask questions. And hopefully you will get a response from me in a formalized way. It's all anonymous. And so we pick the question that resonates and we respond to it and kind of go from there.
Wow, that's great. So what drew you to moms in particular and therapy for moms?
It's a great question. I think naturally I had a focus on young women when I started. I started my career at Mount Sinai at the Dubin Breast Center, and I became the young women's social worker there. So I was really passionate about young women and, this wrench being thrown into a young woman's life.
It was with cancer patients. Yes.
Yeah. Breast cancer in particular. And so when I started my practice, I really wanted to reach young women. That was kind of my focus. And then naturally, as my life progressed, you're exposed to more and more things.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have grown with my natural stage of life, which I feel so grateful for. And it was a natural fit to just, work with moms. I had 2 pregnancies myself. They were not the easiest, navigating that. Also, just becoming an entrepreneur. I'm really passionate about working with people in the workforce and also entrepreneurs. So anything that like I feel connected to, I like to integrate into my work. And I think that'll kind of be the trajectory for me forever. Like as I grow and understand different parts of my story, I think I will be really excited to help other people who are going through something, their own stories. But, I think there's something really special about being able to work with other moms and know the honor of that. So that's kind of how I landed here.
Do you find that being a mom and also being a therapist with your kids, is there something that you do that maybe as a mom you feel is helpful, not helpful, whatever it is? Is there anything that sort of challenges you in that way?
Such a great question. I think naturally I'm a very sensitive, deeply feeling person. And that's also what's led me into this path. And I think my interests guide me more than being being a therapist or following a certain kind of rule book. I think I really try and take my own guidance when I'm talking to women about how to find their gut, I do try and stay on top of mine.
Mhm.
Live through, how practicing what you preach, essentially, and really trying to live by those standards too. So I think it's not necessarily like a therapist, it's more just me personally that I try and really engage in my own well-being. Like that's a huge thing for me and all of my employees. That's something that I really, really value. So I think it's more authentic, I hope, than being like, I'm a therapist and therefore I'm going to do this with my kids. It's more like what resonates with me.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I guess I ask because, I've done a lot of reading and as a parent, and I have teenage kids now. So my kids are in a different phase of life. They're in more of like a exploring phase of life, but I see a lot of, anxiety that shows up the same way that my anxiety showed up. And a lot of the things that I see in them are things that I went through and so they've seen me react and be a certain way already. So for
Mhm.
me to tell them something, it's very difficult. It's as if I know what is happening and I can see it in
Mhm.
front of my face, but
Yeah.
I don't quite know what to do or say, even though I've read about it. I feel like I should like on the book know, but actually in actuality, what do I actually do? And so I guess I wonder if and I don't know how old your kids are, but if that's something that you go through, I think it's one of the tougher things about, raising younger kids into adulthood is that you notice how much of you they are, like the good, the bad, and everything.
Totally. I think that's such a fair thing. And I'm already experiencing that, even though my kids are quite young. Definitely, as they get into the school mode, you start to see that immediately. And the pressures of parents to keep it together or do the right thing. And I think what I find comfort in is knowing that if you're authentic with your kids to a certain extent, it comes off if you are concerned about something or you can relate to them. I like saying that to
Mhm.
my kid because I think that brings us closer. I think that builds trust. It's not coming from a place of like, I'm telling you this is how you should do it, but it's more like, I totally get you. And they feel so seen in that moment, I think.
Mhm.
Having a child feel seen, I think ultimately solves a lot. If you think back to your childhood and the moments that you struggled in with and the anxieties that you had, a lot of it can have to do with not feeling heard, not feeling seen as you are.
Mhm.
And so I think it's like if you can take that simple, obviously there's certain situations that have specific needs, and
Mhm.
this is a generalization, but I think coming down to their level and admitting your own history to them too, and having you develop that, like, you're an ally, you get it, you see
Right. Right. It feels overwhelming. It feels like, how can I possibly be perfect all the time? And
yeah.
so it's really, I think, important for me to just like remind the kids, like, I'm just not, I'm not perfect. I'm going to try really hard, but I'm
Mhm.
just not. So
I love
all just,
that point. I agree. And it's one of the things that I love talking about is that it's natural to have that rupture, and the repair is where we can really have a lot of movement. So like everyone is going to lose it at some point. How you lose it and what that looks like and how often is where we can work on it and all of that stuff. But it is human nature. You're going to be overwhelmed, you're going to be overstimulated, your tone's going to come out in some particular way, and it's going to be this rupture. And then repairing, which I think is beautiful. What you said is like, I'm a person, I'm not trying to be holier than thou. I'm not better than you, right? We're all people. And that's such a great lesson for a kid to understand, right? There's also, this idea of sturdy leadership, which I do think is really beneficial, but I do think there's a little piece that's missing the mark in that. Like you
Right.
have to show that you have emotions too.
For me, when I see anxiety in my kids, I think one of the things, that it makes me feel a little bit like a failure, because anxiety is it leads to depression. It can, especially in kids. And so one of those things that I feel like triggers me is when I see this anxiety and when I see them say things or do things, I get it and I feel like it.
I think something that I like reminding myself about, and I try and remind my kids too, is I have these little like magnets over here, and they literally have all the human emotions. And what I like to say, a feeling is not fact. And what I also like to acknowledge is that anxiety, just like happiness, just like sadness, just like joy, laughter, embarrassment, shyness, all of these emotions that we as humans have are natural and should be there. So, yes, I understand that when there's like so much anxiety, it's hard to be like, okay, this is natural. This is supposed to be there. I want to rid myself of it. But similar to worry time, it's like, give it some space to breathe. It's okay to be anxious. It's actually human nature to have some level of anxiety. And the more we try and shut it down, sometimes the more it can like scream louder.
Mhm.
So just reminding that not having a feeling is not bad. It's not a failure. I can understand why it comes up that way. Obviously, it's very hard to tolerate your children in distress, but it's a natural thing. And if we can take that little piece out of it, that it's scary, that it shouldn't be there, it kind of calms your system down, which
Yeah.
in turn can calm their system down. Like
Mhm.
it's okay to be nervous.
Right.
Don't need to wish that away.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So bringing it back around, do
Mhm.
you have anything that you would like to tell moms of Fairfield County, Connecticut about why they should go into therapy or should not, or, if they can't afford it or they can't, what are some other alternatives, anything like that?
Sure. I think that I'm so happy to see that the stigma of therapy has really reduced in the past couple of years. Therapy is so amazing. And I think that it's so important to find someone that you feel like really, really connected to. So I'm hoping that moms can find that, whether it is through friendships, whether it is through other moms or groups that they attend, that they feel nourished, because our jobs as moms can feel so draining and your cup is constantly being just drained by everything, that it's so important to kind of constantly be refilling that. So I think you don't need to be in crisis to go to therapy. You don't need to be in crisis to need a friend or want to go for a walk or something like that. So I would just think about how, even in the smallest way, or even how in your life can you integrate a little bit of nourishment and what that looks like for you. And that could include therapy, or that could include, going getting a strawberry matcha. I don't even know, but figuring out what that looks like for you, and knowing that there's a lot of spaces, there's a lot of women's groups. One of my friends who I'll plug here is Jessica Hill, who runs the Parent Collective. And there's a lot of groups like this, Fit for Moms, who you had,
Mhm.
amazing communities built for people looking to make connections. So they're really not exclusive, they're welcoming. And I really encourage people to go check those out and know yourself, know your capacity. Are you better one on one? Are you better in groups? And if you guys are interested in learning more about the practice or following along or participating, my website is jennifermantherapy.com, and our Instagram is at jennifermantherapy. And I hope that we can connect and I get to, yeah, be helpful along the way.
This has been very helpful, and I appreciate you. I've
Good.
learned a lot, and I can't wait to share it with everybody.
Same. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.